Football, in its absolute purest, most unfiltered form, is a game that refuses to be governed by logic. It is a sport where the line between absolute humiliation and historic redemption is so thin. It can be crossed in a matter of seconds. When the final whistle echoed through the humid night air at the Miami Stadium, it did not just signal the end of a third-place playoff. It marked the conclusion of a sporting epic that defied explanation. 10 goals. 2 nations driven by the pain of missing out on the grand finale. And a narrative that fluctuated wildly between total dominance and a furious, chaotic comeback. The physical fallout was clear. Players slumped onto the turf, their lungs burning, their minds trying to process a 6-4 scoreline that reads more like a tennis match than a World Cup bronze medal clash. For England, it was a validation of their depth and an explosion of attacking brilliance. For France, it was a night of defensive nightmares. Balanced by a spirit that almost triggered the greatest comeback in the tournament's history. This was a match that left the world entirely breathless. A beautiful, chaotic reminder of why we look at this game with such profound reverence. To understand the emotional weight of this 10-goal thriller, one must look beyond the green grass of the Miami Stadium and into the historical burdens carried by these two heavyweight nations. A third-place playoff is often cynically labeled as the match that nobody wants to play. A cruel fixture designed to force semi-final losers to parade their heartbreak in front of millions. But for Didier Deschamps, this was the final act of a legendary managerial era. The narrative surrounding Les Bleus was heavy with the solemn tone of a farewell. The media pressure had been intense, demanding one last tactical masterstroke from the man who had guided them to the absolute pinnacle of global football. Opposing him was Thomas Tuchel, a manager working under the relentless scrutiny of the British press. A fan base desperate to see their golden generation finally show the ruthless, tactical flexibility required to crush elite opposition. The tactical chess match was already set before a single ball was kicked. France opted for a brave, yet highly risky 4-1-2-3 formation, trusting a young midfield to shield a dynamic frontline. England countered with a highly structured, beautifully balanced 4-2-3-1, designed to control the half spaces and exploit the transitional gaps left by the marauding French fullbacks. There was an intense psychological tension hanging in the air. A collective understanding that this match would permanently define the legacy of a departing icon, and provide a definitive roadmap for England's tactical future. The tactical story began to unfold immediately. And it did so with a devastating sequence of cause and effect that caught France completely cold. In the opening minutes, Didier Deschamps had instructed his side to establish a high defensive line, looking to compress the space in midfield and dictate the tempo. However, this strategy required absolute perfection in possession. In the 3rd minute, the setup was completely shattered. The ball was rolled out to the left flank, where the young French midfielder attempted a casual lateral pass across the face of the midfield block. England's high-press trigger was activated instantly. Declan Rice, reading the body language of his opponent, aggressively stepped out of his double pivot position to intercept the ball near the halfway line. The action that followed was a masterclass in modern transitional play, with the French central defenders retreating frantically to cover the spaces left open by their overlapping fullbacks. Rice drove forward into the vacant central corridor. Seeing no immediate pressure from the French backline, he unleashed a sublime, low-driven curler from 25 yards out. The ball arrowed with terrifying precision into the bottom right corner, completely out of the reach of Mike Maignan. The aftermath of this early goal was psychologically catastrophic for France. The tactical plan to build a slow rhythm was instantly ruined, forcing them to chase the game while their defensive confidence evaporated into the Miami heat. Recognizing the vulnerability of their opponents, England ruthlessly maintained their territorial dominance. The setup for England's second goal was a direct result of their sustained pressure on the ball. France, desperate to prevent England from counter-attacking down the wings, began to concede cheap set pieces. In the 18th minute, England earned a corner on the right flank. The French defensive structure chose to deploy a hybrid marking system, combining zonal space protection with man marking inside the 6-yard box. Declan Rice stepped up, his confidence surging from his early strike. The action was executed perfectly. A sharp, in-swinging corner delivered with precise velocity into the chaotic heart of the penalty area. Ezri Konsa, exploiting a massive breakdown in communication between the French centre-backs, read the flight of the ball flawlessly. He rose highest in the middle, completely overpowering his marker to glance a powerful header into the far post. The aftermath of this goal was historic. France had never fallen 2 goals behind this early in a World Cup match. The stadium fell into a stunned silence, as Deschamps stood frozen on the touchline, watching his team's defensive shape completely disintegrate against England's relentless set-piece efficiency. As the first half entered its final 10 minutes, the tactical context transformed into a lesson on structural exposure. France, trailing by 2, pushed their defensive line even higher, attempting to create overloads in the final third. This tactical shift left massive corridors of space behind their centre-backs. In the 37th minute, the setup materialized exactly as Thomas Tuchel had anticipated. England regained possession deep in their own half, and with a single, vertical pass, exploited the half space. Bukayo Saka received the ball and immediately spotted Marcus Rashford making a devastating diagonal run behind the isolated French fullbacks. The action was pure, chaotic drama. Rashford was played completely clean through on goal. His initial effort was brilliantly saved by Mainin, and the subsequent rebound from Saka was blocked by a desperate French defender. But instead of panicking, both English attackers composed themselves. Rashford gathered the loose ball, waited for Mainin to commit, and unselfishly put the ball on a plate for Saka to smash home from close range. The aftermath of this third goal was an absolute capitulation of French morale. The tactical plan was entirely broken, and the game was rapidly turning into a historic rout. Yet, England were not finished punishing their rivals before the interval. In the final seconds of the first half, the setup showed a French team completely drained of tactical discipline, wandering aimlessly across the pitch. England's midfielders, playing with total freedom, passed the ball comfortably through the lines. In the first minute of stoppage time, Eberechi picked up the ball in a pocket of space between the lines. He spotted Saka making an inverted run towards the edge of the box and slipped a perfectly weighted pass to the winger. The action was breathtakingly clinical. Saka took a precise first touch, cutting inside onto his favored left foot, and wonderfully bent a powerful strike into the bottom right corner. Mainin was left with absolutely no chance, rooted to the spot as the ball rippled the net. The aftermath was unprecedented. France entered the break trailing 4-0. A scoreline that the Opta supercomputer calculated gave them a mere 0.7% chance of turning around. It was the first time in World Cup history that Les Blues had conceded 4 goals in a single half. An absolute tactical nightmare for Deschamps. What happened in the second half, however, will be studied by football historians for decades. Didier Deschamps, facing the ultimate humiliation in his final match, made a radical quadruple substitution at halftime, throwing on Ousmane Dembélé and Dayot Upamecano to completely alter the team's psychological dynamic. The tactical setup changed instantly. France abandoned all caution, engaging in an ultra-aggressive, high-intensity press. In the 48th minute, the tactical shift bore fruit. Upamecano aggressively tackled Ollie Watkins in the middle third, drove forward with immense power, and slipped a sharp pass to Michael Ollis. The action was precise. Aulis delivered a stunning pinpoint pass into the box, finding the run of Kylian Mbappé, who confidently swept the ball into the bottom right corner. The aftermath was a subtle shift in the stadium's atmosphere. It was a lifeline. A small spark of dignity restored. That spark quickly ignited into a raging fire. In the 54th minute, France exploited England's sudden tactical complacency. The setup showed an English side struggling to adapt to the speed of the French transitions. Mbappé, dropping deep into a creative playmaker role, picked up the ball in the central channel. He waited for the overlapping run of Bradley Barcola, who was exploiting the space behind England's fullbacks. The action was electric. Mbappé delivered a perfectly weighted pass in behind. Barcola used his blistering pace to outrun Konsa, and flashed a sensational shot past Dean Henderson at the near post. The aftermath was clear. The scoreline was now 2-4. And panic began to visibly ripple through the English ranks. The historical weight of the match reached a crescendo in the 66th minute. France, buoyed by their tactical momentum, pressed England deep into their own penalty area. The setup was a masterclass in tight space combinations. The French fullbacks pushed high, forcing England into a deep low block. Aulis received the ball on the edge of the box, surrounded by three white shirts. The action was pure genius. Aulis executed a subtle, clever flick towards Mbappé, who took the ball into his stride with immaculate control. With a sharp, devastating movement, he fired a brilliant left-footed strike past Henderson. The aftermath was pure euphoria for Les Blues. 3-4. Mbappé had officially become the all-time leading scorer in World Cup history with 22 goals. France were now just one goal away from completing a miracle. But football, in its cruel elegance, always demands a final twist. Just as France looked completely destined to find an equalizer, the tactical context shifted once again. In the 85th minute, France pushed too many bodies forward, leaving themselves exposed to an English counterattack. Jed Spence surged down the right flank, exploiting the space left behind by the French attack. He cut into the box, where a fatigued Malo Gusto made a desperate, poorly timed tackle. The referee pointed straight to the spot. The action was ice-cold. Bukayo Saka stepped up, ignored the immense psychological pressure, and firmly buried the penalty into the bottom right corner to seal his historic hat-trick. The aftermath appeared to be the final blow to the French resistance, making the score 5-3. Yet, this unforgettable night had more drama scripted into its final moments. In the 96th minute, a fatigued Declan Rice played a loose pass in midfield. Upamecano, reading the error, intercepted the ball and instantly drove forward. He picked out Ousmane Dembele, who easily turned past Trevoh Chalobah and fired a fierce left-footed shot into the net. 4-5. The stadium erupted once again. But before France could even launch a final long ball into the box, Jude Bellingham decided to settle the epic himself. In the 98th minute, receiving the ball in transition, Bellingham showcased immense composure. The action was iconic. He dribbled past three exhausted French defenders inside the box, maintaining his balance before executing a calm, simple finish to make it 6-4. His seventh goal of the tournament secured his place as England's top scorer in a single World Cup edition. The final whistle blew immediately after, bringing an end to a match that will forever be remembered as a timeless masterpiece of modern football. The dust may have settled on the pitch, but the analytical fallout of this historic 6-4 result will shape the future of both footballing nations for years to come. For England, this third-place finish is far more than a mere bronze medal. It is a definitive statement of tactical progression under Thomas Tuchel. The sheer depth of the squad, showcased by the brilliant performances of Eberechi and Morgan Rogers, proves that the three Lions possess an attacking ecosystem capable of dismantling the most elite defensive structures in the world. They will return home with their heads held high, knowing that their blueprint for the upcoming European Championship is incredibly solid. For France, this chaotic night represents the poignant, bittersweet end of an era. Didier Deschamps leaves his post as a titan of French football. But this match exposed a critical, deeply alarming structural instability within the French defensive system. The transition to a new managerial era must begin immediately, with an urgent focus on rebuilding an aging backline that conceded 4 goals in a single half for the first time in their modern World Cup history. The legacy of Mbappe's historic goal-scoring record will offer comfort, but the tactical questions left behind are profound. Did this match expose a fundamental flaw in the modern French footballing philosophy? Or was it simply the beautiful, unpredictable chaos of a beautiful game that refuses to be tamed? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.